including Carol Cole, Peter Curtin, and Herman Mudgett, are known to have claimed their first victim before the age of 10. Jesus. Another 26% kill for the first time while still in their teens. Conversely, the older a potential killer becomes, the less likely he or she is to act out homicidal fantasies. 44% of known serial murderers began killing in their 20s, 24% in their 30s, a mere 4% killed for the first time in their 40s, and only 2 individuals committed their first murder beyond age 50. Age at first kill is disputed or unknown for the remainder of identified serial slayers. Juvenile killers present a special problem for society, since nearly all American jurisdictions limit the length of time a youthful offender may be detained for any crime regardless of the charge. In general, statutes mandate unconditional release by age 18 or 21, and juvenile records are frequently sealed, even to police scrutiny, when the offender becomes an adult, thus effectively erasing criminal records that include convictions for multiple murders, rapes, and other felonies. The dramatic increase in violent juvenile crime, including a rash of sensational schoolyard shootings in 1997 to 98, has prompted some states to lower the legal age at which offenders may be tried and sentenced as adults. Of 38 states with capital punishment statutes in place, 8 specify no minimum age for execution, but U.S. Supreme Court rulings have effectively barred the death penalty for defendants under the age of 16. 12 states permit execution at that age, or more at 17, while 13 and the federal government bar capital charges below 18 years of age. New York requires a death row candidate to be at least 19. Harsh punishment for juvenile offenders, even multiple murderers, remains a subject of heated debate in American society. On balance, it appears that a majority of citizens believe defendants who commit adult crimes, murder, rape, and so on, should face adult penalties. Even some hardliners rebel at the thought of executing killers younger than 16, but serial killers are recidivists. I'm not sure what that word means. I'll have to Google that. By definition, and the tiny number of successful parolees in such cases, 4 of 1,500 plus offenders released to date without apparently killing again is a telling argument against the view that anyone can be reformed. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know what my personal views are on that. I'm a kid that's younger than me, so executing, killing someone who is younger than me, who's under the age of 16, I don't think I agree with that, and I just personally, I don't think I agree with the death penalty in general, because I think that it, depending on the person, can be a form of escape. Say for example, hardened serial killers like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, Ed Kemper, etc. They don't deserve the death penalty simply because they deserve to rot in prison instead of getting the quick way out. You know what I mean? I don't know, just my opinion. Next up, we have motives for serial murder. Serial killers in fiction and film are frequently portrayed as twisted geniuses, pursuing some gothic agenda that requires a modern Sherlock Holmes or even psychic powers to cut short the reign of terror. In real life, of course, the motives for serial murder are as diverse as those for any other type of crime, as varied in fact as the killers themselves. Some experts still insist that serial murder is always sexual in nature, but such broad generalization is no more valid than claims that serial killers are always male or always white. In fact, there are no absolutes. The FBI Crime Classification Manual, written 1992, presents 4 broad categories of homicide with 32 subcategories, nearly all of them applicable to some case of serial murder within recent years. 3 are examined here, while the 4th, group cause homicide, is discussed in the essay on teen killers. The manual itself provides a number of examples, clearly demonstrating the diversity of motives for serial murder, and examination of the several categories readily brings other cases to mind. First up, we have criminal enterprise homicide. The first category of murder, with 10 subheadings, is labeled by the several murders, each on behalf of those groups. In Canada, prolific slayer Pt.2 killed many of his 42 known victims as a service to the Hells Angels motorcycle gang, but an equal number were killed out of personal spite. Criminal competition homicide is a third form of criminal enterprise slaying, similar in many ways, if not indistinguishable from gang-related slayings. The same arguments apply, and one need only recall the case of homicide Harry Strauss, linked to over 100 slayings with Brooklyn's Murder Incorporated, to see how prolific such killers may be. Kidnap murder is the fourth type of criminal enterprise homicide, assuming some sort of demand in exchange for the victim's return. William Hickman was one repeat killer who tried his hand at ransom kidnapping in 1927 to raise the tuition for college. He returned his 12-year-old victim on schedule, but she had been strangled with her body hacked off at the waist, arms severed at the elbows, eyes stitched open to present a semblance of life at the ransom exchange. Jesus. The fifth type of criminal enterprise slaying, product tampering homicide, may or may not include a financial extortion demand. I was just going to say, I haven't read this yet, by the way, but I was just going to say, like the Tylenol murders, and then it next says, no motive has yet been determined for the unsolved Tylenol murders of 1982, but those crimes inspired another practitioner, Stella Nickel, to poison her husband for his life insurance. As an adjunct to the scheme, she also killed a total stranger with poison, extra strength, Excedrin capsules in an effort to divert police attention from herself. Drug murder, the sixth type of criminal enterprise killing, is typically, but not necessarily, related to organized gang activity. Once again, the distinction is blurred because many serial killers abuse drugs extensively, and some occasionally sell drugs to support themselves. Convicted killer William Menzer, presently serving life in California, is known to have participated in cocaine smuggling and drug-related murders in Florida. That commercial activity did not prevent him from committing other homicides for personal motives, including alleged involvement in satanic human sacrifice. The most common form of criminal enterprise slaying linked to bona fide serial killers is doubtless the insurance/inheritance-related death. Oh yeah. A majority of those who kill successive relatives and spouses, including both male Bluebeard slayers and female Black Widows, murder in anticipation of some financial reward. The FBI manual further subdivides this type of murder into individual profit and commercial profit slayings. In the first case, the killer hopes to profit financially as through a life insurance payment. In the second, his or her desire is to achieve controlling interest in an active business concern and the profits from same. The last category of criminal enterprise slaying, dubbed felony murder, refers to slayings that occur during commission of some other crime, such as robbery or burglary. Again, the FBI recognizes two subtypes. Indiscriminate felony murder refers to a homicide planned in advance, but without specific victims in mind, as when a store is robbed and the customer is killed to eliminate witnesses. Charles Sinclair, a nomadic killer linked to the murders of 10 coin shop proprietors, exemplifies such action. The flip side of the coin, situational felony murder, involves a murder spawned by panic, confusion, or impulse. Again, William Hickman provides a case in point with his accidental murder of a Los Angeles druggist after police surprised him in an act of robbery. Next up, we have personal cause homicide. The second broad classification of murder is personal cause homicide, defined as an act ensuing from interpersonal aggression that results in death to person or persons who may not be known to each other. The homicide is not motivated by personal gain or sex and is not sanctioned by a group. It is the result of an underlying emotional conflict that propels the offender to kill. Few students of crime would deny that these motives apply in many cases of serial murder. The first subcategory listed in the Bureau manual is erotomania-motivated killing, very common, wherein murder springs from the killer's fixation with his victim. A case in point stress or anger, but an effort is made to deceive investigators, as when Paula Sims played a non-existent masked intruder for the deaths of 2 successive children. A third kind of personal cause homicide is labeled argument murder, resulting from verbal disputes in the heat of the moment, distinguished from spontaneous domestic slayings by the FBI's insistence that victims exclude family or household members. This sounds like nitpicking until we recall the penchant for sudden violence among many serial killers, prepared to lash out on a whim in response to real or imagined insults. Prolific slayer David Bullock shot one victim for laughing at him, another for the simple act of messing with a Christmas tree, telling me how nice the Christmas tree was. Interesting. Conflict murders, in contrast to those arising from verbal arguments, spring from some ongoing tension between killer and victim. The circumstances may include anything from a feud between neighbors, which prompted Donald Harvey to poison one of his few victims, not killed in hospitals, to a clash between criminal accomplices, as when Elmer Henley shot and killed Dean Corll in Houston, Texas. A fifth kind of personal cause homicide, labeled authority killing by the FBI, involves the murder of an actual or perceived authority figure in the killer's life. Prime examples may be found in the work of serial killers who, like Henry Lucas and Edmund Kemper, murdered abusive parents while simultaneously preying on strangers outside the home. Revenge killing, yet another kind of personal cause homicide, represents an act of retaliation for some real or perceived injury. The target, in turn, may be either symbolic or specific. Rudy Bladell, for instance, murdered a series of railroad employees after losing his job with the Rock Island Line, the killings cast in his mind as retribution against a heartless corporation. A seventh type of personal cause homicide, dubbed non-specific motive killing, seems to be a catch-all category for crimes without an apparent or rational motive. The acts of delusional psychotics fall into this category, and the FBI manual cites Herbert Mullen as an example, with his murders intended to prevent earthquakes in California. Interesting. Extremist homicide, the 8th class of personal murders, is subdivided by FBI analysts into political, religious, and socioeconomic murders, the latter spawned by hatred of specific ethnic, social, or religious groups. The sole example cited by the FBI is serial killer Joseph Paul Franklin, labeled a political killer despite his obsessive hatred of black people and Jewish people. A case of religious extremism leading to murder is seen in James and Susan Carson, self-styled Muslim warriors, who killed 3 suspected witches in compliance with a verse from the Quran. Norman Bernard, who shot homeless transients as a favor, offers an example of the socioeconomic killer. Mercy homicides spring from a slayer's warped desire to end suffering by ending lives. It is a motive often seen in medical murders, particularly in the case of homicidal nurses or nurses' aides. The FBI manual cites Donald Harvey as a case in point, with his confessions to murdering more than 50 hospital patients. Closely related to mercy killing is another form of personal murder, hero homicide. In such cases, exemplified by killer nurses Janine Jones and Richard Angelo, the slayer creates life-or-death situations while planning to save the day and garner adulation for himself, but death results from careless planning or technique. The final type of personal cause homicide, hostage murder, occurs most often with serial killers at the time of capture or when they are interrupted in the commission of another crime. Fred Glenner and South African pedophile Gert van Rooyen both took girlfriends hostage when authorities confronted them. Each killed his hostage before committing suicide. Lastly, we have sexual homicide. A third type of murder, sexual homicide, is clearly dominant in the realm of serial murder, where sexual motives are seen in 2/3 of all cases. The killer's expression of sexuality may be symbolic, even also hard to come by in a field where egos often count for more than understanding, and needless debate over trivia serves to compound rather than eliminate confusion. Criminologist James Reinhardt took the first major step toward disentangling serial murder from other types of multicide in 1957 when he coined the phrase chain killers in his book Sex Perversions and Sex Crimes. Simply stated, Reinhardt's chain killers were those who left a chain of victims behind them slaughtered over time, and he went on to provide more examples 5 years later in The Psychology of Strange Killers, 1962. The term serial murder itself surfaced in 1961, according to author Harold Schechter and Jesse Sheedlower. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Editor of the Oxford English Dictionary. The quote, attributed to German critic Siegfried Krautkauer in Merriam-Webster's Third New International Dictionary, 1961, reads, he denies that he is the pursued serial murderer. 5 years later, in his book The Meaning of Murder, 1966, British author John Brophy applied the label to Jack the Ripper and others. Another decade passed before forensic psychiatrist Donald Lund mentioned serial mass murder in Murder and Madness, written in 1976. Between those publications, FBI agent Robert K. Ressler allegedly thought up the term on his own, coincidentally while visiting England in 1974, 8 years after publication of Brophy's work, but he waited nearly 2 decades to claim credit for the brainstorm in Whoever Fights Monsters, 1992. The clamor for credit aside, self-styled experts on serial murder spend much of their time debating proper definitions and progress no further toward an understanding of the grim phenomenon itself. The FBI's Crime Classification Manual in 1992 defines serial murder as 3 or more separate events in 3 or more separate locations, with an emotional cooling-off period between homicides. At first glance, the Bureau's definition seems clear and concise. A second look, however, reveals 3 built-in flaws that doom it from the start. First, we have the requirement of